Who says you can't? You probably watched that already. If you've not watched, I'll probably say go back and watch it, and maybe those insights could help you. Now, in many times, and yeah, recently I was on SGR coming back, and I was on SGR, and some friends of mine were sitting next to me there. They were trying to watch this soccer that left some people wounded. This game that left some people wounded, and I don't know whether you were the wounded or you're the one who wounded other people, because there was a lot of disappointment. But as these guys were watching this game, they were trying to stream it. And as they were streaming it, they would, because they're streaming it, the train is moving, they're trying to stream, and sometimes you get into places where it's remote, connection is poor. And so the thing would drop and you see, they'll animate how they. And of course, I started reflecting of how many times do we sometimes get frustrated over things we can't control. Because really, in this little thing here, these guys could not control the availability of internet as the train is moving. But in their reaction, it will frustrate them. I remember at one point, one young man almost hit the table because of that. But really, if he hit the table, it would have hurt his arm. And it would have had a wounded arm because of something he has no control over. You have no control about internet availability everywhere. And so, the tool I'd like us to really look at today is something that has occasionally I have to remind myself about it. Because then I realize in many instances, we get ourselves caught up in things that we have no control over. And so this tool is called the Controlling the Controllables. And in our life, we have to be very careful to ask ourselves, because the way I see this and the way this tool has helped me is always to realize that I could probably categorize things into three things. The first one is the things I have full control over. And this one, I can make a decision over them. I can decide what happens and what doesn't happen. I can decide how I approach them. I can decide my response. I can decide how I respond to a case where I was expecting for something to come and it has not come. I can decide how I respond to that. And so that space where you have full control, you have the decision-making authority over this situation. So as you're implementing this grand idea that you have, as you're walking this journey of implementing this dream in your life, what elements of that do you have decision-making authority? Maybe you just have the decision-making authority over the resources you presently have access to. And just accept it. That's what I have decision-making authority over where I spend my time, I spend my energy. Maybe sometimes you don't even have a decision-making authority on how you spend your time, because maybe your time still, you're employed somewhere, and the way your time is structured, there's a lot of control over your time, and so you really cannot control your time as much. But probably you work in a space where you have decision-making authority over how you spend your time. The relationships that you cultivate, the relationships people that you spend time with, you have a decision-making authority over those. Your emotions, maybe you have a decision-making authority over your emotions. Maybe you have a decision-making authority over your growth, over how you grow your mental capacity, over your spiritual journey, over your family affairs. Maybe you're at a point where you have decision-making authority. You need to ask yourself, which of these can I really have control over? Because sometimes we might take in too much and it frustrates us. The next thing is really to ask yourself, what can I influence? You have no decision-making authority over that, but you can influence which direction it goes. You can influence how it plays out. You can influence how people respond to that. And there is your opportunity for growth. There's your opportunity to really push yourself to the next level of operation. There's your opportunity to even really ask yourself, where do I have opportunity to influence the outcome? And maybe you have no control over it, but if you give your thought and opinion, you might influence how people approach it all. For example, you're working with someone, a partner you're working with on something. You have no control over what they decide to do, but you can influence what they decide to do. You have no control over when they go to bed, but you can influence when they go to bed. You have no control over what your spouse does about your relationship, if you're married, or this person you're trying to get into a relationship with. You have no control over how they approach this issue, but you can influence how they approach this issue. And there lies the opportunity for growth, is to identify that place where you know, I think here I can influence this, but I have no control. The problem is always thinking you have no control over it, yet maybe thinking that I can control it. I can control how this person gets what I'm saying. I can control how they respond to this. No. You can't control how someone responds to what you say. But you can influence. And there lies the opportunity to do more. And so you need to ask yourself, what are the things in my life that I have no control over, but I can influence how it comes out? This is your plan. The plan to increase your financial income. What can you influence? Maybe you can have a conversation with the person concerned. The plan to start a business. Where can you influence? Maybe you have no control over every circumstance because you will not. But what can you influence? And the last bit is to identify the things that you know very well. That I have no control over those things and not letting them frustrate you. Is to ask yourself, I have no control on how the bank decides about my loan application. I have done my part. I've given them what they asked me. I've given them forms. I've filled the form. I have done I have no control on when they decide, how they decide, but I've done my part. So, if they decide otherwise, it will disappoint you, but it should never frustrate you. When you have no control over, you're a parent, you're raising your children, you've done your part. You have no control over how they turn out in life. You have no control over that. Letting that frustrate you is gonna mess your life and you lose balance even over the things that you have full control over. Because you'll be spending a lot of your time on frustration instead of focusing and gaining control, gaining decision-making authority on the things you can control. And so I'd like you to think through your circumstances, your situations, your life, and ask yourself, what do I have full control over? I can control this. I can control how I respond to things. I can control when I wake up. I can control how much I spend on this. I can control who I talk to. I can control how I respond to situations. I can control that. What can I influence? I can influence my customers to keep buying from me. But you have no control over them, but you can influence them. So keep buying from you. I can influence my employer to be more reasonable to me. So I can influence my partner to listen more. I can influence. And what don't I have control over? I have no control over the bank. I have no control over the weather. I have no control over the internet. I have no control over, and I will not let those things frustrate me. Because if I do, they will mess up with my joy. They will mess up with my ability to really steer my life in the direction that I want to steer now. This is easier said than done. But I believe that practice makes perfect. You will not be perfect at this, but practicing it might just make it become your second nature. Where now for you, you're able to say, this I have no control over, it's not going to stress me. But this, I can influence. I can have a conversation with someone about this and I will influence it because here lies my opportunity for growth. And this, I can decide on this. Now, something interesting is, if you focus more on what you have full control over and what you can influence, you will realize the things that you have no control over will reduce and will reduce and will reduce. Again, it's just about your perspective of how you will view them. Your frustrations will reduce in life. They'll not go away because in life so many things get to frustrate us. I'm not promising you that your life will be smooth all through, but you will learn, you will detect a frustration from miles away and you'll be able to say, I know this is going to frustrate me. I'm not going to let it frustrate me. I will focus my energy on what I can do about this situation. So, controlling the controllables. What exactly can you control? What can you make a decision on? What can you influence? And what do you need to watch out so that it doesn't get to frustrate you? Well, thank you for listening. And I hope this has helped you even look at your life and really categorize things, relationships, finances. Remember the 10 categories and just have those at the back of your mind as you're going through this. Your social life. What are the things that you have control over? What are the things that you can influence? Or what are the things you have no control over? Your personal development. What are the things that you can influence? What are the things that you have full control over? And what are the things that you have no control over? And I believe if you're able to do that, hopefully your journey will be less bumpier. And you probably have some joy that some people will wonder, how comes you never get so much mad when things don't go your way? And you'll probably be able to tell them, it's because I've learned to control the controllables and never spend my effort on things that I have no control over. Well, thank you for spending the time with us and for paying attention to this. I pray that it becomes something that you can use in your life. Thank you and do have a wonderful time.